Alton Ellis, Joe Higgs, everybody comes from that area, the Heptones, Toots and the Maytals. So we were like one big happy family inside that ghetto area.
Yeah. Can you give us the picture of Trenchtown? How was Trenchtown at that time?
Well, it was really a tough situation, because the housing, you could walk from one house to the next house, in that Natty Dread album that Bob Marley did when he said when he walked from Second Street to Third Street, then he jump a fence to Fourth Street and meet some dread on Fifth Street. Then when he reach Sixth Street, them say, I've got to reach Seventh Street because that's where the division is. So it was a great experience for me, and it was good that I had that kind of experience amongst the stars who emerged from that area. And the growing up was what helped to mold me into who I am today. And during that time, I had joined the Boy Scout movement, you know, and as you can see it here, I was a Boy Scout, and that is what actually helped to groom me, right, to be who I am today. And then I was an influence to the area. So a lot of the youths were members of the Boy Scout, and that's where we grew up together as one big happy family.
You also went to school with the likes of Marcia Griffiths and Bonnie Whaler. Were you together
Yes,
there in Trenchtown at that time?
yes, we were all schoolmates together from we were 5 years of age. It's Bonnie Whaler, Marcia Griffiths, the techniques, the original techniques with Slim Smith, Frederick Wake, Franklin White, you know, um, and Black Uhuru, Ducky Simpson from Black Uhuru went to that school too. So it was a school of real great talent, and we didn't realize that we could utilize our talent for a in the professional era until we actually left school, and then we started our adolescence era. And then I remember it was one night I was going home late, and I got off the bus near the cemetery that the Whalers used to rehearse in, right? And I was walking home, and I hear this singing, these voices singing. And when I stopped and I went in to look, I saw Neville. Neville is Bunny Whaler. His name is Neville Livingston.
Yeah, man.
Well, we call him Neville then. I saw Neville singing, with a whole bunch of people. And this guy, I learned now whose name was Georgie, who light the fire in that song, No Woman No Cry. And then everybody was just singing, 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 singing. And I said, wow, so it was a great start for me there.
All right. Now, when did you meet the Whalers, or when they started? Were you there? Were you part of the Whalers? How did you get in touch with the Whalers?
Well, what really happened is that in 1973, I was living in New York at the time and going
Mhm.
back and forth to Jamaica. And then I was on tour with Johnny Nash, who was
Mhm.
actually called the king of reggae before Bob Marley, you
Mhm.
know. So I appeared on Soul Train TV, with Johnny Nash promoting reggae. So when the Wailers came into the United States, right, to tour on the Catch a Fire album, right? That's when I met the entire group as a group. But this was the time when Bunny Whaler had left. Bunny quit the group after the UK leg, after the England leg of the Catch a Fire tour. And he was replaced on the US tour by the teacher and the tutor of the Whalers, which was Joe
Oh,
Higgs,
Higgs. Yeah.
right? So a journalist friend of mine named G. Fitzbartley took me down to the hotel where the Whalers were staying because they were playing in New York for a week, opening for Bruce Springsteen at a place named Max Kansas City. So G. Fitzbartley took me to Bob and introduced me, saying that I am a very experienced guy. I understand the road and tour. I just finished touring with Johnny Nash, and they could take me on as a member of the team. And then Bob asked me one question. He said, "What month were you born?" And I said, "August." He said, "What date?" And I said, "The first." And he said, "You're a born leader. Come on board." And that's when I I started touring with them and be associated with them. That was the initiation.
All right, Father. What does one need to become a road manager? What work are you actually doing there?
Well, it's not like you can go to, it's not like a school where you go and you learn and you sit down in a class,
Mm,
It's
mm,
a practical thing and ongoing thing because actually I didn't even start it out as a road manager in the
mhm,
professional area so much. I was on the team with them and then I learned, I saw all the trade. There was a guy named Lee Jaffe who was very
mhm,
close to the Whalers and Bob, and he was the one that was instrumental in getting the group into the States to tour. So he was there, and I observed everything, and I started out learning all the ropes. That even when the members went their separate ways, and I started out with Peter Tosh not as a road manager, as his personal assistant. You know,
mhm,
and when I
mhm.
started touring with him now, then I picked up more stuff about what a road manager is because it's like almost a manager on the road, because what you are representing the manager on the road, no matter what the situation is, you have to, the buck stops with you and you have to make all the decisions and you have to make decisions just like what the manager would do because that's what you are. You are the road manager. So it was a great experience for me. And if you was to ask anybody in the reggae music world, who is the most experienced tour manager and road manager, they would call my name first because everybody
True,
knows me. Yeah, I like that.
true, Father. What was the reason of Peter Tosh to come here in Africa, in West Africa, in Benin? Because I read that you were there with Peter Tosh in Benin, and then you confronted the police there. There was those squabbles there with the police. What really happened there?
Well, what happened, is that, if you read the history of Peter Tosh, he was
Mm,
brutally beaten by the police
true.
in 1978. So
Yeah.
since then, he was suffering from some headaches,
Mm,
constantly. So
mm,
after we finished that tour in 1981, the Wanted Dread and Alive tour, he said to me he wants to go to Africa. So he has
mhm.
never been to Africa. He said he wants to go to Africa to see a bush doctor, in regards to the pain that he was having.
Yes,
So
Southern.
I was in Cuba at the time with Jimmy Cliff,
Mhm,
doing some concerts. This was 1981 now. And then I ran into a Nigerian entertainer named Sonny Okusun, right, who was on the bill. So we talked and I told him about Peter and he said, yes, you guys should come to Nigeria.
mhm,
You should definitely come to Nigeria, right? No, I had been to South Africa with
mm.
Jimmy Cliff in 1980.
True.
So I've experienced, about what Africa is like. So in February of 1982, before he started the recording of his new album, Mama Africa, he decided that we had to go to Africa. So just me and him alone decided to go down to Nigeria. And it was a great experience for me, and for him too, because it was his first time in the motherland, and the experience that we had there was tremendous. You see, I talk about it in my book. Meeting Fela Kuti, and hanging out with him was a great experience for us too. But one of the most significant thing that happened is when we visited Benin to see the bush doctor. The same day we were in Benin was the same day the Pope was visiting Benin.
Mm,
And it was some great experience for us because one of the things that stood out in my mind and I saw was people weren't used to seeing dreadlocks, people with locks. So people were kind of looking and wondering, who is this person? So when Peter tried to talk to some of them, they were running away. And when we saw a lady walking down the road with water on her head, and we stopped talking to her. She said she can't stop because she has to go see the Pope. And when she heard that, Peter got angry, and said he can't believe that his people doesn't want to talk to him. They want to go see the Pope instead. So that was a hell of an experience, and it was during our time in Nigeria that he wrote the song Mama Africa.
mhm,
He wrote Not Gonna Give It Up. glass house.
That's house.
And it was a great experience, and it's inspired him to write a lot of songs because of the experience that we had there at the time, you know. So it was a great experience for us.
All right, Father. So when Peter came here together with you here in South Africa, he didn't come to South Africa. He preferred to go to Swaziland to perform there. Were you also
Yeah.
there in 19, was it in
Yes, yes. I was
1983?
the one who actually arranged that tour.
Mm,
And it was skillfully planned because earlier on that year, we were in New York, and a journalist did an interview with Peter, and
mhm,
he asked Peter if he would come to South Africa.
mhm,
And Peter says, yes, you know, my people are there. Why should I not take my music to my people? But the
mm,
only way I would go is if I'm performing for my people. Because during that time, you know, that situation where the whites only thing was going on, and he didn't want to be a part of that because he had turned down millions of dollars to come there.
mhm,
So this journalist, when he did the story, he just used part of what Peter said and say it says Peter Tosh says yes, he would come to South Africa and leave it, and it caused a lot of a lot of flashback, and a lot of journalists and people were wondering how Peter agreed to go to South Africa under that regime that was there at the time when it wasn't that way. He said, if I'm performing for my people, so he didn't want his face to be seen nowhere near that, not even changing plane, because we would have to go to Johannesburg and then change plane to go down to Swaziland.
mhm,
So what we had to do is skillfully plan the trip where we flew from Jamaica to London, London to Germany, and from Germany to Zimbabwe, right?
mhm.
And then the promoter sent 4 private planes to pick us up in Zimbabwe. And then we flew about a 4-hour trip from Zimbabwe down to Swaziland. And that experience for him was one of the greatest experience because it was his first time performing in Africa, right? And
Mhm,
a lot hundreds and thousands of folks came down from South Africa. They were
mhm,
going through the borders. You know, a matter of fact, the border people closed the borders many times for hours because we had 2 day show there, the 17th and the 18th. And people who had tickets for the Friday show didn't arrive till the Saturday because of the border closed, and people were just the border people said they have never seen so many people going through the border all at once. So they got very nervous. So they closed it down many times. So people got there late, but we accommodated them. And it was one of the greatest experience I've ever seen. You know, when I went there with Jimmy Cliff 1980, it was an experience, but this one with Peter Tosh, you know, in 1983, which became his first time overseas in Africa,
mhm.
right? And his last overseas concert in his life. So it was the first and the last for him in many ways.
All right. As someone who worked closely with Peter Tosh, what type of person was Peter Tosh? Because the Babylon newspapers and media, they said he was too aggressive. What type of person was Peter Tosh?
Peter was one of the most misunderstood
Mm,
person in the world. Because
mm,
if you sit down to have a talk with Peter, it's like you're at a university. You know, he
mm,
speaks very clear. You understand clearly. He
mm.
calls a spade a spade. He was never an aggressive person, but he's not afraid to tell you the truth.
The
He
truth,
comes
yes.
straight and just tell you straight up what the situation is and what is happening. And he wasn't afraid to speak his mind, you know, and I learned quite a lot from him. And we spent a lot of time together, just the two of us, because when we were in Jamaica, every Sunday morning, teacher would come and pick me up, and we go down to the sea. Because he loved to fish, you know. I mean, he was born October 19th, right? And you know, that's the sign is water, rain, you know. So he loves to fish. So every Sunday morning wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we go down to the sea and we catch fish all day, and then we go up to his house. And he was the one who taught me how to steam fish with okra and crackers, you know, because he's a very good cook, you know. So and that's how we became more closer than just music. You know, we were just like close friends. And I tell you, he's one of the greatest human beings I've ever been associated with because he is straightforward. people will just look at him, and because of his aura, they would just form their own idea what they think of him. But when you get to know him, he's one of the nicest human beings you can ever be around. And people will tell you that, especially females, when they sit with him and talk with him, oh boy, they don't want to leave, Or they say they enjoy, talking to him. And he's very, very educated in historic things, about Black people, and Blackness, and where you're supposed to be, and your aims and aspiration. He's very well embedded in that. So he can give you a lecture on any subject to do with Blackness and human being, when it comes to that part of it.
All right, all right, Father. According to your understanding, what caused the Wailers to be apart?
Well, I tell you something, whether it happened then, it would have happened. It was something destined to happen, because the group was loaded with a lot of talent, right? Just like how the Beatles, after a while, they went their separate ways. At some point, they would go their separate ways, because everybody has their own path, their own ideas for this. And as Bonnie Whaler said in the interviews, it's more music for the people, because you're getting three different people, putting out music, all aiming to the same goal. But what happened is that when they did the Catch a Fire tour in the UK, right?
Yeah.
I was there with them, but when they came into the US and I joined up with them, that's when I learned exactly what happened. Money wasn't satisfied. He didn't understand quite a few things, so to speak. He really didn't understand what tour support meant. So, and he didn't like the cold either. He didn't like the cold weather. So what happened? When the tour was finished, record company always give you tour support as a new group, so they give you a financial statement so you can go through to look at it to see what how much money was spent and what it was spent for. When he got the statement, he was shocked and he was mad. He said, why is he getting a financial statement? That, and he said the statement said that the group, owe the record company X amount of money. And he said, but they are the one, the group who worked. It's not the company. It should the company owing the group money. But he didn't understand what tour support meant, right? So he got angry, and then he said he's not gonna go on the US tour because he's not gonna play those venues, and because they are free clubs, right? And he said that Chris said, well, you have to play those venues, to go through. But, I mean, those venues, like a venue in New York, the name of it was Bottom Line. Him don't like this word bottom. Why should he play in a venue that name Bottom Line? And his own personal view. So he decided to quit the group, after the first tour. To support Catch a Fire album, he quit the group. He tried to get Peter to quit too at the same time, but Peter decided to stay. And his girlfriend, Yvonne, at the time, may she rest in peace, she encouraged him and said, no, just stay, you have your work to do, and go on the US tour, and I will come with you. And she even came on the US tour too. That's when I met her first time. So Bonnie decided to quit, right? And the group went on to do the US tour, and Joe Higgs, the tutor and the teacher for them, filled his spot on that US tour. Now, on that US tour, they opened for Bruce Springsteen at a place named Max Kansas City in New York City. They played in Paul's Mall up in Massachusetts, 6 days. Those days, as a new group, you play for a week and you play like 2 shows per day. But in New York, on the weekend, because it's New York City, they were doing 3 shows on the weekend per day. So they did 14 shows in 6 days. So that was like a grueling thing. But that's the way but they were opening for Bruce Springsteen. And then after that, went on to continue the tour, opening for a group named Sly and the Family Stone. Now, at that time in the 70s, Sly and the Family Stone was the biggest funk group in the world. They had top 10 songs on the Billboard charts all over the place. So to get an opportunity to open for a group like that was one of the greatest opportunity for a totally unknown group, because the Wailers weren't known in the US then. It was Johnny Nash who was called the King of Reggae, because he covered some of Bob Marley's song, guava jelly, you know,
mm,
and he was getting the airplay because he was a Black American, right? So he was getting all the airplay. So to open for a group like Sly and the Family Stone, you know, Sly and the Family Stone have hit song like, I want to thank you for letting me be myself. Again, that was one of their hit songs.
all right.
Dance to the music. Another one. So they had so many hit songs. But what happened now is that the Stanley Family Stone felt that the Wailers weren't big enough to be opening for them because they were a great big rock group in the world. So
All right.
when we got to Las Vegas, right,
Mm,
they got up early and took the bus and drove away and left us stranded in Las Vegas. So
mm,
Bob was left and the group was left on the roadside with nowhere to go. So we had to call around, and a friend who was um who was living in California.
mhm.
He was going to college at the time, a Jamaican guy named Gus Brown. And what he did, he drove with some friends from San Francisco, because you know, Las Vegas is close by to San Francisco.
All
And he
right.
drove with some friends from there. And he came over and they rescued the group. He went to a club named Metrics and
Mhm.
spoke to the guy and tell the guys that this is a group from Jamaica and they are great. Eric Clapton covered the song. I Shot the Sheriff. That's the only thing people knew about in America. I
Mm,
Shot the
mm,
Sheriff,
mm,
and it
mm.
was written by Bob Marley, but nobody knew anything about reggae. And then the guy decided to give us some days inside the club. So he kicked out the group that was there. And this is the notice that he put up on the board. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay.
You know, can you see it?
No, yes, slightly. Okay.
Yeah, it's this is the notice he put up on the board to kick out the group that was there and put in the Whalers, you know. And then when he saw how great they were, he gave us 2 more days, you know, and then Capital Raider came and rescued everybody, you know, and
Okay.
then the rest was history, you know.
All right, we're running out of time now. We left with 5 minutes now. Then, lastly, Father, can you just summarize on what is being explained in your book?
The
Reggae in
book
My Life is.
is about my total experience. You know, I'm celebrating my 62nd year in the music business, you
Mhm,
know, and it's about my journey. The book has stories of all the artists that I've worked with, you know,
mhm,
throughout the years. Some of the
mhm,
stories about the journey, especially when I took Jimmy Cliff to South Africa in
mhm,
1980. That's a
mhm.
great experience for me that I'll never forget, performing in Soweto in
Uh-huh.
front of over 60, 70,000 people in
Okay.
1980.
Mhm.
So the book has a lot of stories. That's why it says, my reggae, my life is. I could
Yes.
say my life is reggae, you know, but I
Okay.
turned it around and said,
Okay.
reggae, my life is, because my life is so many aspects in reggae, in different part of it. So it's like a Bible. It's like uh, a book that you can learn. Even the outsiders outside of the business can learn a lot about the business. And you learn some experience thing. You're gonna see things about artists like Luciana, Dennis Brown, you know, the
Michael
Wailers, the
Isaacs.
Marleys, because I was the one that took the Marleys on their first tour in 1986, Siggy Marley and the Melody Makers. So it
Mhm.
has all those stories inside it. So I urge everyone to get that book, because when you read that book, you know, it's a pity we didn't have much more time that we could go through some more things. We probably may have to do a part 2 on this thing, you know, because it's very interesting, and I'm very passionate about the book because I spent 20 years of my life, you know, to put it down, you know, during my travels and work and things. So, you know, I urge everyone to get, you know what I mean, and so on.
All right. All right. Now,
You see,
give thanks.
this is when
Okay.
I took Peter Tosh to Swaziland, you know, you can see. See, I have so
Uh,
much things to show, you know.
mm. No, give thanks, Father, for your time. Give thanks for your time.
What's that?
Give thanks for your time.
Yes, I thank you for having me. It's just a pity that we had so much technical difficulties
Yeah,
in the
man.
beginning, which ate up most of the time. But you know, if you want to do a part 2 anytime, you can let me know. Then we just overcome all these technologies, things that creating problems. But thank you for having me, and I want to thank all of the fans out in South Africa. Right, I know that Burning Spears coming there on October
True,
19th. So
true, true.
brace yourself.
19th and 20th.
That's Peter Tosh's birthday. You know.
Yeah. Give thanks, Father.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Tenestelen.
Alright, masimbambe ngolo hlobo ke apho utata Copeland Forbes umphulaphuli we-VCRFM ngalo ndlela ke sithi siyaphuma ngaphandle ngolo hlobo sisithi ke kuye siyabulela, give thanks. Alright, masibambe ke yena ke unqenqe siyambona ke ingathi uPhopho sele ekhona ngaphakathi umphulaphuli we-VCRFM ke sikhangele ke kweli yacala.